Hey, welcome! So today we are going to dive deep into a process that's happening inside you right this second, billions of times over. It's called protein synthesis. And look, I know that sounds like a dry biology term, but trust me, it's not. This is the microscopic assembly line that literally builds us, every living thing really. And the amazing part is, by finally understanding this code, we're figuring out how to fight everything from cancer to global pandemics. So yeah, let's get right into it.
So to kick things off, I've got a little riddle for you. What in the world connects your hair, your muscles, and a COVID-19 vaccine? I mean, they seem totally unrelated, right? One's about your looks, one's about your strength, and the other taught our bodies to fight a brand new virus. Well, the answer is actually simpler and way more incredible than you might think.
You guessed it, the answer is proteins. They are the absolute workhorses of our cells. We're talking about stuff like collagen, right? These amazing little molecular ropes that act like scaffolding for your skin, keeping it tough but also flexible.
And they're not just passive structure, they're the literal engines inside our bodies. Every single time you move, even just blinking your eyes, it's because of proteins like actin and myosin sliding past each other inside your muscles. They turn chemical fuel into actual motion.
And, maybe most importantly, they are our personal bodyguards. These little Y-shaped proteins called antibodies are custom-made by your immune system to hunt down and neutralize invaders like viruses. So yeah, they're our structure, our engines, and our defense, all rolled into one. Pretty important stuff. So, the big questions are, how does our body actually build these incredible little machines? And how can we use that knowledge? Well, that's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the basics, then get into the nitty-gritty of the assembly line. Then we'll look at 3 game-changing medical breakthroughs, how we're fighting cancer, stopping bacteria, and the genius behind mRNA vaccines, before we wrap it all up. Okay, first up, the body's building blocks. Let's just take a moment to appreciate how ridiculously versatile these things are.
Seriously, think of almost any job in your body and chances are a protein is doing it. They give you structure, right? Like keratin in your hair. They're like little delivery trucks. Hemoglobin carries oxygen through your blood. They're catalysts called enzymes, making all the chemical reactions in your body happen fast enough to keep you alive. They make you move, they act as messengers like the hormone insulin, and of course, they defend you. It's no exaggeration to say they're responsible for pretty much everything a cell does.
So if proteins are all these workers doing all the jobs, where do they get their marching orders? Well, let's take a look at the amazing factory assembly line running inside every single one of your cells.
And it all begins with a gene. Now, a gene isn't just some abstract idea, it's a real physical thing. It's a specific section of your DNA, a sequence of chemical letters that holds the exact blueprint for how to build one specific protein.
This right here, this is basically the fundamental rulebook of life. It's called the central dogma of molecular biology. So here's the deal. Your DNA, that master blueprint, is super precious. It's kept locked up for safety inside the cell's nucleus. It can't just wander out. So, to build a protein, the cell makes a quick, temporary photocopy of the gene. That copy is called messenger RNA, or just mRNA. The mRNA then takes that copy out of the nucleus to a little protein-building factory called a ribosome, which reads the instructions and builds the final protein. So information flows one way, from DNA to RNA to protein. That's the core principle.
We can really break this whole thing down into 3 main steps. First up is transcription. That's just a fancy word for making that mRNA copy from the original DNA. Then you've got RNA processing, where that copy gets a little tidied up and prepared for the factory floor. And finally, translation. This is where the magic really happens, where the ribosome reads that mRNA message and translates it from the language of genes into the language of proteins.
But how does the ribosome actually read the message? It reads it in 3-letter words called codons. You can think of proteins as being built from little Lego bricks called amino acids, and each 3-letter codon in that mRNA message tells the ribosome exactly which Lego brick to grab next and snap onto the growing chain.
And this table, this is the dictionary itself. This is the genetic code. And it's basically the universal Rosetta Stone for all life on our planet. A ribosome anywhere can see the codon AUG and know, okay, grab a methionine. It sees CCG and knows, all right, next up is proline. It just reads along, codon by codon, linking the right amino acids in the perfect order until, boom, it hits a stop signal, and a brand new, perfectly formed protein is released.
But what happens if there's a typo in that original DNA blueprint? A single letter change, what we call a mutation, can change a codon, And that might mean the wrong amino acid gets plugged in, or maybe the whole process just stops way too early. Now, sometimes these changes don't matter at all, but other times they can lead to disease. And understanding that, well, that's the key to so much of modern medicine.
Okay, so now that we get the process, how can we actually use this knowledge for good? Let's start with one of our biggest foes, cancer.
So here's a key insight. At its core, cancer is all about uncontrolled growth. And to grow and divide that fast, cancer cells have to churn out a ton of new proteins. They basically put their protein factories into overdrive. You could almost say they have an addiction to protein synthesis. And you know what? That addiction? That's their biggest weakness. It means we can create drugs that specifically gum up their overactive machinery, essentially starving the cancer cells while leaving most of our normal, healthy cells alone.
All right, let's switch gears. We've talked about fighting our own rogue cells, but what about fighting foreign invaders? How does all this help us stop bacteria?
Well, bacteria, just like us, are constantly building proteins to live and multiply. They follow the same basic rules. But, and this is the critical part, their protein factories, their ribosomes, are just a little bit different structurally from our human ribosomes. And that tiny, tiny difference is something we can exploit brilliantly.
And here's exactly how we do it. This image is just fantastic. That red molecule you see is an antibiotic, and it's lodged right in the guts of a bacterial ribosome. See, antibiotics are designed to be a perfect key for the bacterial lock, but they don't fit in ours. They're like throwing a wrench into the gears of their specific machine. They physically block it, shut down protein production, and the bacteria die, all while our own factories keep humming along just fine.
And that leads us to maybe the most revolutionary application of all, something that literally changed the world in the last few years, using protein synthesis to build our own defenses on demand. So mRNA vaccines, how do they work? The idea is just genius. Instead of injecting a weakened virus, the vaccine just gives your cells a piece of mRNA, a blueprint. And this blueprint only has the instructions to build one tiny harmless part of a virus, like its spike protein. So your own cell factories, your ribosomes, get this blueprint and they just do what they always do. They read the instructions and they build a little protein. Then your immune system spots these new proteins, recognizes they're not supposed to be there, and builds a powerful army of antibodies to fight them. The result? Your body is now fully trained and totally ready to defeat the real virus if it ever shows up, and you never had to get sick to do it. We've basically hacked our own cells to become on-demand vaccine factories.
I mean, when you just step back and look at the whole picture, it's pretty mind-blowing. Understanding this one single biological process has opened up a completely new era in medicine.
Think about it. What started as just a fundamental question, how does a cell read DNA to build things, has given us unbelievable power. The power to find and exploit a cancer cell's biggest weakness. The power to selectively shut down invading bacteria without hurting ourselves. And now, the power to hand our own immune system the instruction manual to defeat brand new threats before they can even get started.
The journey from just reading the code of life to actually rewriting the future of medicine has been absolutely incredible. This one elegant process is behind all the complexity and diversity of life on Earth. So it really makes you wonder, now that we truly understand the language of life, what are we going to build with it next?